Hey, friends, welcome back. It's the Standing on Business podcast. Today, we have the honor of having Jeff Knauss, the founder and CEO of Arcovo AI, here in our studio. Thank you so much for coming in, Jeff.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, just to give us a little bit for maybe people that don't know you personally and know your story, can you give us a little bit about your background and kind of the stories of your businesses and your serial entrepreneurship and what's brought you, basically to this day here?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll try to keep it the short version. I started in broadcast TV, worked in Rochester at a TV station out there, came to Central New York to be a advertising manager in Syracuse at a NBC, CBS, and CW affiliate. Did that for a few years, but I really wanted to get into digital marketing and social media advertising. And the only really good way to do that was to start a business. TV did some digital marketing, but it wasn't kind of aligned with what I wanted to do in digital marketing. And so decided to go off and start my first entrepreneurial journey, which was Digital Hyve. Digital Hyve was a digital marketing agency that I started in 2014. Uh, we bootstrapped, meaning it was me, myself, and my business partner, Jake Tanner. We bootstrapped the business, so we were using our own finances. We didn't raise capital to start the company. And like for most first year bootstrap businesses, it really sucked. It was very scary. I had a 3 month old at home.
Oh, wow.
My wife was staying home with a 3 month old, so we had literally zero income coming in.
Wow.
Thankfully, I saved money as I was a young person and working in TV. I'd saved a lot of money, so that was the only way we could kind of survive in that first year. And then after the first year, we started to gain a little traction, hired our first employee, got in our first kind of office space, and from there we really took off. We ended up growing so quickly that we were the 52nd fastest private growing company in the country on the Inc. 5000 list, fifth fastest growing marketing advertising company in the U.S. in 2018, and then by 2021 we were an eight-figure revenue business, had multiple locations, and we ended up selling the company. It was a great financial exit for myself, and my business partner, because we bootstrapped and we didn't raise any outside capital. We had all the equity, so when we sold the business, we had the equity. But was what the really wonderful part was that all the people that helped us get there, all the employees that helped us build the company, um, we were going to ESOP ourselves, which means becoming an employee-owned company. But we sold to an ESOP business, which means that all of our employees became employee owners of the company they helped build, Digital Hive, but also the company that bought us, which was Butler Till out of Rochester. And so it was a great exit kind of for everybody. And so that happened in 2021. And I grew up in a relatively low income, area. Our family didn't have a ton of money, and so my kind of goal was to work really hard when I was young, and then retire early. And so my target was 35. I sold the business at 35, and retired. And that lasted all of 3 weeks. I went to Finland to visit my wife's family, and then pretty quickly realized that I wasn't very good at sitting around. So I came home, swung the pendulum way too far the other way. Started three restaurants with some partners, a taco place, a sushi place called Hidden Fish in Skinny Atlas, a Clover's, which is a diner. Started a mastermind group called Profound. Started an education company. Bought a bunch of land up near Micron. Became a public corporate board director. Started a family foundation focused on changing generational poverty for as many people as possible throughout my lifetime. And then I started Arcovo AI in November 22, which is how I spend, or November 2024. November 22 was in ChatGPT 3 launch, and I kind of like became obsessed. So I started the business, and a couple of years later, Arcovo AI, and that's how I spend most of my days. So have a lot of different things going on.
What do you guys specialize in Arcovo AI?
Yeah, so Arcovo AI, what we do is we build AI employees that kind of automate the repetitive, mundane things that humans do today and in the workplace. So, all the administrative work that we do as humans, data entry, report building, AR, AP invoicing, proposal building, quote building, anything that's administrative in nature, these AI employees can automate the steps that humans do to get to the output. But to get the elephant out of the room is not to replace humans; it's to augment them, to take all the stuff that humans don't like doing anyway, have compute take over those parts so that the humans can focus on the uniquely human stuff, and help meaningfully spend their time in the business that will actually drive the business forward.
Yeah. AI is a very hot button topic nowadays, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people people get afraid that we're going to get replaced by computers and all of that. And I like the analogy. I heard this. I think this is a Gary Vee quote, if I'm not mistaken, of, prior to the tractor being invented, everybody was a farmer. And then everyone worried that, if you get the tractor invented, that there's going to be nothing left for humans to do. But, there's other things, it drives innovation. It drives, the kind of the next step of evolution, almost, if you will, of what our day-to-day work life looks like. How has I guess since you have made your exit out of Digital Hive, how has the marketing or kind of the digital space, I guess, changed, or do you kind of still keep a finger on the pulse in that kind of environment?
Yeah, definitely not as much as I did when I had my marketing agency. I've not followed the marketing trends the way that I did, when I was doing it day to day. But I will say that, AI is obviously affecting everything. To your point, people, I'll give you another analogy. If you were to ask people, you know, back before Henry Ford invented the, automotive manufacturing process and was made it completely democratized to have an automobile, transportation was primarily horses. And so if you ask people before that happened, what would you want in transportation? How could you want to make transportation better? uh, they would have likely said faster horses. They would have said, bigger saddlebags to carry more things or carriages that were more comfortable. They didn't know how to say cars, right?
Yeah,
And so that's what disruption is when it's hard for consumers to be able to kind of um, say what they want before they know that it even exists. And that's what AI is way to your point, it's an incredibly hot button topic in the way of like all change is hard for humans, right? But I completely think you're right that it will create lots of, I mean, my business, right? We've hired a ton of new people. We're growing at a ridiculous rate. All of those jobs, all of the company, all the revenue that we're generating and then putting back into the community, like that doesn't exist without AI. So everything will, went from like the horse transportation industry to the automobile industry, which is one of the biggest industries in the world. And so I think you're right in evolution. And I think that completely translates to marketing, right? Like, I mean, Zuckerberg has came out and said essentially that he wants to make everything so simple that you just upload your website and then push a button and then AI will take over and make all your creative and optimize, for the best ads and, and drive conversion at the highest point at the lowest cost per conversion or cost per acquisition. Um, but, something you and I talked about before we started this is that I think there's still something to human art. I think that,
hmm
I give it the example of I don't think many people will want to go watch robots play sports. Even though they can, even though AI will, do that. You've probably seen videos of like robots boxing and
yep,
playing soccer and things, but like what we care about is the human spirit, the human story, the drama, all of those things in sports. That's why we watch. And I think there's something to um, art. And I think that still very much has a place in marketing. And so as I talk, like AI can do a lot of things, but there are still deeply unique human things that will exist and will continue to exist in an AI world. And I think one of those things is being able to create creative that moves people in a way that will be impossible today for AI to replicate in the same way. I think will be hard to scale. I will not rule anything out from AI because it's just too early. I think AI is going to do a lot of things that will surprise us. But I think art specifically, in the same way that people won't want to watch robots play sports, I think people will still want uniquely human art.
yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of what's going on today, especially if if I follow a lot of directors of photography, filmmakers of all of the AI brands right now that are trying to get them on board, basically,
Mhm.
of like, hey, AI video, AI art, etc. Um, but there is something deeply and uniquely human about having a person make that creative. I think that AI, just in general, I think it's a great tool, but and almost to a certain extent, though, for some certain things, exactly like you said, the mundane data entry, typing stuff in and making invoices or creating documents, etc. The things that humans already kind of don't want to do as a tool, or maybe even in that sense a replacement. I think it's worthwhile, and I think that's true many times of even what we deal with a lot of our clients of a lot of these AI firms of. of the kind of creative that they're coming up with and making, and there's just something you can still, I don't know, do you think that there will be a day that you can't tell between AI generated whatever that might be, text, art, photos, videos, or do you think that that's just a that's just there's never going to be a point where you can't distinguish between a human touch as opposed to something that's made by a computer?
Well, I think it's a nuance, right? What I would say to directly answer the question, we are in that age, right? There is no question in my mind that anybody that uses social media has seen a video and thought that it was real. AI has gotten as good as it tricks you. You're watching something quick. There's some video of, two people in a fight, or, somebody eating a thing, or somebody showing a landscape somewhere they visited, and there's something in that that has been AI generated and you just didn't know because you're not looking at it with a critical eye. And even if you were, it's getting so good that,
Yeah.
you may not be able to catch it. So I think that's going to be a really challenging piece, is that we will have content. We will, in all of human history, how have we proven that something's real? We took a picture or we had a video, and you were able to trust it because there was nothing that could replicate that. Now with AI, I think we're here, and it's only going to continue to get better, right? Like the saying is, today is the worst the AI will ever be, right? It'll only get better. Um, and what I would say is, when I say that people will appreciate human art, I think we're going to start to realize that the flaws, the human lens, the opinion, the bias that human have, that plays a huge part in the emotion that's in art. That plays a huge element of why people connect to it. And so, will we be able to tell the difference between, a human painting and a AI painting? Maybe not, but I think that we will crave, and I think there will be some technology that will allow us to verify human versus AI. And I think that it's kind of like, when you might see two paintings that two humans made that are very similar, but if one's from a specific artist, it might be 10x more expensive because people put more value behind it. I think it's going to be something like
Hmm.
similar to that, um, where AI will be able to create interesting content and realistic content. But I think that human generated content, people will really, really desire more of.
What are your thoughts on the over reliance of AI? Basically, nowadays, that to maybe make a specific point, we've become almost in a sense so lazy to have AI take care of, writing our emails, and almost kind of in a way of replacing our workforce in a way, or augmenting our workforce, that we lose those kind of critical skills to communicate, to be able to kind of lock in and get things done, and et cetera. And especially, look again, kind of to bring it back into the creative space, like of people just now, just the kind of AI slop that's out there. There's a very specific
Ugh.
tonality and a very specific way that AI writes captions and copy, etc.
Yep.
What are your kind of thoughts, and kind of the boundaries of overconsumption, almost in a way, of AI?
Yeah, a couple things in that. So, um, first and foremost, I have 9 and 12-year-old son Max, and Leela, who's 9 years old, and I am terrified of the world they're gonna grow up in. Like, yes, I do AI every day. It's my day job, and I think there's a tremendous amount of value creation that will happen. I think us automating the stupid. I see a lot of smart people doing dumb work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people that are brilliant, that are stuck behind a computer, pulling reports, doing data analysis, like all these things AI is really good at. I do not think it's their best use of their time
Mm-hmm.
to be able to create the most value for a company or for themselves, right? And so I think in that way, AI can be really powerful. But you said something important, like what the number one skill that I think people will need to have moving forward in the world, not just the business world, is critical thinking, because we will not know, to what I said earlier, like we won't know the difference between AI generated content and real content. And so that means that you can't trust things on face value. You can't just be like, oh, that's real because I saw it on the internet. Like that's
Yeah.
not how. So critical thinking, being able to take an AI output and look at it and say, that is AI slop. How can I make it better? How can I use the tools to make it better? I don't think it's an or, I think it's an and, right?
Mm.
I think leveraging the technology to be able to create better outputs, to do it faster, to make a larger impact, all good, right? I think it's when, to your point, you get lazy when, and this is something that we talk about to my team about all the time. We obviously are using AI significantly in our day-to-day job. Like, we are scaling so fast because of AI. If I had AI in my marketing agency, we would have been 3 times the revenue, needed to hire half the employees to get to that revenue size, because so much of the stuff that we are doing today, I'm needing to hire less people to be able to scale at higher revenue. I imagine we will have likely hundreds of employees at some point, human employees, but we will have thousands of agents. So it's not an or, it's an and. I just think that our human team needs to be able to think critically about saying, hey, I just used AI to create some kind of copy for something. I don't like how it came out. I need to work inside of AI to make it better. I don't necessarily need to rewrite it myself. What the skill will be is being able to look at output and then going back into the project, or going back into the instructions, or going back into the skill and being able to rewrite the skill so that you get better outputs consistently that don't feel like AI slop. That's the real thing, because it's not so simple to be like AI creates slop. It's like, no, you didn't take the time to train AI
Hmm.
to make a better output. And that is going to be the new skill. It's not, I can use AI, put a thing in, get an output. It's, I know how to train AI to give me the right kind of outputs. That's going to be the skill moving forward.
Nice. Kind of bringing it back to the early days, starting a business, Digital Hive. What's kind of a learning lesson that you learned? Um, Learning lesson that you learned. What a sentence. What's a lesson that you learned um, starting that business that you didn't have, like, you didn't had no expectation of, no, just something that just came out of left field? One of the biggest kind of takeaways of starting an agency, starting, a brand new business.
Mm. I mean, what did I not learn? Like, dude, I was such a novice. I had never started a business before. I had never had any like business mentorship. My parents, my dad worked for a town highway department. My mom had a bunch of different like more administrative jobs. And so, business on like entrepreneurship was never an option for me. Like, it wasn't something that I considered that would be for me. And then once I did it, I was like, oh, this is like, this is my identity. Like, I love to build things, right? And so, in doing so, I learned a lot. And I think the thing that makes anyone um a good entrepreneur is recognizing that you don't know and you have a deep, deep desire to learn. Um, I mean, I didn't know how to hire people in the right way. Like, I didn't know how to define a role and then hire the right person for that role. Because that's, if you think about that, that's hard. You start with two co-founders. I did more of the sales and account management. My business partner did more of like the digital marketing execution, so we knew our roles pretty well. They were defined, and I basically got a client, and he would do the work, and then he would report on it, and I'd report back to the client. And so, but then, all right, so we need somebody to help him do execution. Okay, well, what does that look like, and how do we hire that role, and what are the responsibilities, and how talented, how much experience do they need to have? How much can we afford? So hiring the right, because I will say the thing that drives scale is being able to hire the right people for the right roles, and having them, and then creating the expectations of what you need, holding people accountable, and celebrating their success. And that was the reason we scaled the way we did, was because we built an incredible team of people. um you know so yeah, so it makes sense, like, hire people that are similar to me, that do similar things to him myself, and then hire people similar to Jake, and hire people that have similar skills to him. But then what about all the other things that you need to do that we have no idea how to do? HR being the one that comes to mind. um, when we were 3 employees, uh, we hired, the next hire was a director of HR, and people thought we were crazy. Like, that's overhead. That's not like contributing to the revenue
Yeah.
generating activity. But I think one really critical thing that I would say to entrepreneurs is it's very important to understand where you want to go as a business owner. What are your goals? What do you want to do? How much do you want to scale? Because we knew we wanted to create a significant company. We wanted to create a company with lots of employees, lots of clients, lots of revenue, That's the kind of company we wanted to build, a scaled company. And we knew pretty early on that we didn't know how to hire people. We didn't know HR policy. We didn't know, the accounting piece as like I don't come from an accounting background, neither does my business partner. And so we realized pretty early, like, okay, if we want to build a scaled company, then we need to hire somebody with those skill sets. And we hired a director of HR as our fourth employee to help us scale into hiring 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 employees because we knew that that was not our skill set. So in Arcovo, my, like, again, third hire was my director of HR at the time. She's now our chief people officer at Arcovo because, again, she helped us scale into it. So I would say, like, knowing where you want to end up and then reverse engineering that to understand the steps you have to take to get there is a really important skill that entrepreneurs have that I would have never known before actually executing on that.
Yeah, in the sense of growing the business and scaling the business, for someone that's in that kind of position right now that they have, a goal, or they want to be bigger, they want to do more, what would you say is the recommendation of like, how do you go about that? Because you can just, for example, you come into work, you just do a great job at work, a good day at work, but that doesn't make the business any bigger.
Right.
What kind of position, or what type of, almost in a sense, kind of greenhouse you have to put your business into during that phase to get that growth to happen?
Yeah, I think the first thing that entrepreneurs have to have is self awareness. I think you need to know yourself really deeply and you have to be honest with yourself and you have to take your ego, put it aside, say, what am I good at? What do I suck at? Right. And what are all the things in the middle? And when you're good at something, when you're uniquely good at something as an entrepreneur, lean all the way into that, right? Like for me, the thing that I love the most, the thing that I excel at is deep relationship building. I care deeply about other humans. I love meeting people. I love understanding their story. Like I was excited to come here. When you told me you had a digital marketing agency, I'm like, dude, I could talk to you all day. I like want to hear everything about how you do it because I love to learn about other people's journeys and how they do what they do. And so that's my unique skill set. And typically, the things you're good at are the things you should spend the most time doing. Um, and so when you know that, then you start to look at like what are the things I'm not so good at. And so then okay, well, this is what I need to hire for. Because if typically the things you aren't good at are the things you will avoid, and and if it's important roles or functions in the company, you got to fill that gap somewhere. Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are like, oh, I spend 5 days a month doing invoicing and I freaking hate it, but I have to do it because nobody else is doing invoicing in the business. So the way that I would think about it is I would say, all right, well, what do I need to do? What position do I need to put the company to be able to hire somebody that does our back office financials, right? Or create automations around our back office financials, or being able to delegate that away from me having to do it so that I can focus on my genius zone, I think is one of the most important things. That's like phase one. Phase two is then, okay, now I know myself intimately enough to know like what I love doing, but me as a single contributor, the biggest thing that stops, and a lot of times it's like service-based businesses, is I'm really good at filming and production. I'm really good at sales and building relationships. I'm really good at building digital marketing campaigns. If the founder is doing that and then they're hiring around themselves to fill in the gaps, the number one trap they fall in that stops them from scale from there is realizing like I'm really good at this, but what I actually need to do is hire more people that maybe because I'm uniquely good at this, obviously if the business is successful, I need to hire people that even if they can't get to my level, let's say they're 80% as good at me at doing this thing, I still need to be able to hire people to scale this part of the business because I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
You as a CEO or a founder of a business needs to understand that who you are as a CEO will vastly change from when you have no employees to 10 employees to 30 employees, 50 employees and beyond. And so you need to evolve with the business because eventually you won't, even if you love production, you will eventually need to hire those roles to be able to say, I have that handled because I need to think about the higher level strategy of where the business needs to go because we are scaling to a point of I need one production manager or one, videographer and then four videographers and now a production manager that's managing both videographers and editors. Like you start to think about what the business needs and then applying your skills to your various skills to those things and you eventually may not be focused solely on your genius zone. You may be focused on managing people that can fulfill what you need to do in the business so that you can sit on top of the being it's a cliche, but working on the business as an entrepreneur is so much more important than working in the business. Because to your point, I can do all the what's called individual contributor work in the world, but that will never scale your company.
Yeah, because you can come in and just be an employee in your business, which I think at a certain season, a certain time, you do need to,
Of course.
But if everyone's just working in the business and no one's working on the business to take it to the next step,
That's where it'll stay.
it'll stay that exact same spot.
100%.
What's the big learning lesson, I guess, from taking from going to being a partnership, two of you, and then going up to, you said, at its height, how many employees, multiple locations, and
We had
many.
56 full-time employees. Yeah, office in Rochester, office in Syracuse. We were able to, especially after the pandemic, we were working with people all over the country. So,
What's the biggest kind of uh, unexpected, almost in a sense, positive or negative from growing from that, and something that you didn't, or something that you learned from that process?
yeah, one of the most painful things was actually growing that fast. A lot of people from the outside will be like, "Oh, isn't it awesome? You're scaling so quickly. You're growing so fast. You're, generating all." And, especially before AI, you needed humans to do all of that work. And when we would get new clients, I mean, there was times where we were bringing on, 30, 40 clients a month. And, we just didn't have the team to be able to fulfill the work. And so at some points it felt like I remember I think the biggest was we hired like 16 people in like 4 days or something. It was crazy,
Wow.
just because we had this influx of business and we realized, what I did not do well in Digital Hive because I frankly didn't know how to do it was predict demand. And so we would just have all of our teams work really hard up until the point where they're like, I can't do it anymore. And be like, okay, I'll help. I will hire a bunch of people. And then I would go off and hire a bunch of people. But the problem is those people we need to find the people. We need to onboard the people. They need to get trained. So it's not like it's an overnight solution.
Yeah.
You hire someone, it's not like they're going to jump in and start running campaigns or whatever it is. We need to be account managers. Day one, they need to learn the job. And so we would hire too late for the demand, and then because we were a cash flowing business, and so we were using the cash flow to fund the company, and so we would have to kind of wait to get paid to hire more people, and so that constant like dance of when do we hire, how do we hire, who do we hire, what do we hire, like that was a really really big struggle. And so you have to use data to be able to come up with a strategy around, okay, this is how we've structured our team. We have an account manager, we have a digital marketing producer, we have a digital marketing analyst. They work as a pod. That was just kind of how Digital Hive worked. They worked as a pod to work on a set number of clients, and that set number of clients could be very different. Like we might, one of the teams might work with a really large insurance, brokerage, and that may be all they work on, but another team might have 40 clients that they work on together. And so we had to figure out like what does capacity look like? How much can they work on? Does that reflect in revenue? Does that reflect in number of clients? So we had to figure that piece out and then be able to predict, all right, based on our sales velocity and the number of clients we're bringing in, when is that tipping point for when we need to hire to be ready to be able to handle on the next sales velocity? And so that's a hard dance that a lot of people have a hard time, figuring out. And I will say that AI has helped tremendously for this business to be able to kind of predict demand and hiring needs.
Absolutely. you when you're working with clients, and when you are um, growing the business and working on the business, and navigating, I guess, what kind of recommendation could you give to someone when it comes to sustain, like, growing the business in a way that doesn't feel like a monster, almost, in the sense that it's just ruling every single aspect of your life, to maintain that, like, hey, we're growing at scale, the business is doing well, but there's more to life than the job.
Yeah. It's a great question because I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this. For a long time, there's been this conversation around like work life balance. And I think it really gets people messed up. Um, there isn't a balance. Balance is not a thing. Balance to me is I'm 50% work and 50% my life. As an entrepreneur, everything is one thing. Your work, the work that you do, your life. I have kids. Like I, I I don't think of it that way. I think of it more like a harmony. Like I need my life to be harmonious. And how I think about that is that there will be times, there will be seasons, there will be moments where I am 100% work, 0% family. There will be other times where I am 100% family and 0% work. I don't think there ever will be, there ever has been a time where I'm like, I'm at a perfect balance, a perfect like thing where it's, my work is over here, my family's over here. When you're an entrepreneur, I believe if you want to scale, like I know there are people out there that have, side hustles or they have businesses they want to create as a lifestyle business. If they're happy, then that's great. Like, I think everyone should do the thing that makes them happy. I just am the belief if I love scale. I love figuring out the problem of how to take something that you start something and it has the largest impact it can possibly have on the most people.
Hmm.
And so for me, I have been I think it's about understanding what your priorities are. And I knew from an early age that I wanted to be a dad. Like I just knew that. I wanted to be a dad, I wanted to be a good husband. And so it's like to me, like this whole conversation is incredibly simple. All it comes down to is being able to be thoughtful and intentional around how you choose to spend your time. Notice I don't say time management. Like it's I choose to build a business or build a life, build a business, build a family. I choose to build it all by how I decide to spend my time. And so if you break it down in that way, I coach my kids soccer. Like I love coaching their soccer. I've coached my son's soccer team since he was like 3. I've coached my daughter's team. I coach their outdoor teams and their indoor teams. Like I'm hyper involved in that because it's my priority. And my business is my priority too. And when I'm at coaching, like when I'm at practice or when I'm at the game, you're not going to get a hold of me. I'm not picking up the phone. I don't care what happens because I'm 100% family, 100% soccer,
Hmm.
0%, business. And there's other times where I have an important event. Like I'm flying to Florida next week and I'm going to be speaking in a keynote. When I'm on stage, unless, I mean, I won't even see it, right? Like like unless there's some big emergency, my wife knows like I'm doing a thing and she has been super supportive. That's very important to have a really wonderful partner and I'm very fortunate for that. But like it's all just choosing how you spend your time will build a life. And I think that that's the key is you have to understand your priorities. And I don't think that enough entrepreneurs stick to their principles, stick to how their prioritization and understand there's going to be times like I will say in the beginning days of Digital Hive, I had a 3-month-old at home and I started a brand new business. It was very difficult, but I just made decisions with time and I had a partner that supported me where I was like the the baby is a baby. There's very little I can do other than like support you, with sleep and all that stuff. I'm going to go work my ass off so that when the baby is a little bit older and they want me to coach their soccer team, I will have built a scaled business that I can then step away from and spend more time. So it's all about understanding your priorities, the things that you want to spend your time with, the life you want to build, and then making those decisions and sticking with those decisions to create, a harmonious life.
I think that as entrepreneurs, we are, say we, spoiled almost in a sense because you have an ability if it's your business and again within certain limitations because sometimes you have to be at you have to be at work, you have to be at the meeting, you have to be at the place, but that kind of flexibility of this morning I have to take a little time because I'm gonna I have this personal thing that is important to me and
Mhm.
and the people that I care about, and I need to get it done, and I need to be able to, or vice versa. Hey, right now I need to go into the office. I know it's 8 p.m., but this thing needs to get done real quick because this is the important thing that we're building on and this is, critical, etc. I do also then kind of go on the flip side of that. This is something I heard recently. I don't know if you ever heard the Mexican fisherman analogy.
No.
So basically the story goes like this. There's this American businessman and he goes on vacation in Baja California and he sees this guy fishing
Mm.
and he just fishes a couple yellowfin and he sells a couple fish and that's it. And the guy's like, why didn't you catch more fish? You could do more. He's like, why? I sell my fish. I go, I pay my bills, and then I go and I just chill. I relax. I'm able to, I think that the story goes, I get to sip wine on the beach
Yep.
and just relax. He's like, well, how would you do it differently? You grow, you scale, you do this thing, you open this thing, then you make an initial public offering, you sell the business, you get blah 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 blah. And he's like, okay, and then what? He's like, then after it's all said and done, then you can go and then you'll be able to relax, sit on a beach, sip wine,
Yes. Yeah,
and
yeah,
uh
yeah.
and,
Love
and,
that.
and relax. And kind of it kind of made me start thinking like, and maybe you think about this differently, and I'd love to hear your viewpoint on this, like scaling for the sake of scaling, growing for the sake of growing, but almost in a sense like, like what we were talking about earlier, when a business is going so well and you have so many, you have enough clients, and it's going and it's growing and everything's going well, but you lose all of the flexibility and personal time, and now you're so attached to that business. Is it worth, almost in a sense, doing, or is it better to kind of stay at a manageable size, or a smaller size to stay happy, almost, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that story. And there's two things I want to address. So the first is I want to push the idea of that you started with I have to be at that meeting. And the reason I say that is because I think everyone in entrepreneurs or otherwise, I do think we're spoiled in the way like time management is our own. It's our business. And I would push that we have to do anything because I want to take it to the extreme to make the example of like if my kid calls me right now in the middle of filming this podcast and says I need you, I literally will walk up and leave. Now, technically, I have to be here because I committed to you. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Like I'm a very like I'm on time. I respect people's time. Let's pretend you're our biggest client. We're sitting in a meeting together and I'm pitching the biggest thing of my life and it will completely change the trajectory of the business. If my kid calls me and needs me, I'm going to walk out of that. I won't even give an explanation with the rationale of like, I don't have to do anything. I get to do whatever I want to do. And yes, there's consequence to that. But hey, here's the thing. Like if I walk out because my kid needs me and that person is like, hey, screw you, you left the meeting, you're not getting my business. Do I want that business? Do I
Yeah,
want somebody that doesn't understand that if my kid needs me and I'm gonna walk out and do the thing, like, do I really care?
yeah,
So like that's the freeing thing that I've figured out in my life that I have full control. I don't need to do anything, right? I recognize that there's realities around that. There's obviously implications, like if I don't go to the pitch and I don't show, like there's an extreme of that. But we don't do that. Like if we say we're going to be at a pitch, we're going to do the pitch and do the thing or whatever we need to do. Or if a client's upset, we solve the problem. But at the end of the day, if we lose a client, go out and get a new one, right? So I just want to say that because we do have an extreme choice to do anything we want. Free will is an amazing thing. And so I think that that's again how you build life. To your point around scale, I love that story. I had heard that, and I'm appreciative that you reminded me because it is very funny. I think you're absolutely right. Like for some people, it will not be worth it. Like if your goal is not to, again, it goes back to understanding what you want out of life. And some people, like myself, I love building a company that I can hire a bunch of people and give them a job. Like I take so much pride in the fact that Digital Hive hired so many people that were like, a few years out of school. They came to this really cool office. They met some of the. I just saw a picture a couple weeks ago of one of our past employees at Digital Hive having a wedding, and one of her bridesmaids was somebody they met at Digital Hive like a decade ago.
yeah,
Like that's an incredible feeling to me, right? Um, so I think that if you can't look at anything binary, you can't say like, do I want to scale or do I want to have an easy life, right? I don't think it's that. I think it's a nuanced idea of like, because I know many people that have an incredible lifestyle business and they're pulling in, 100K, 200K a year, and they work 20 hours a week, right? That's amazing for them. I also know people that have built scaled businesses that make 50K a year because they can't take any money out of their business. They have so many employees that make so much money. By the way, Digital Hive, there were employees that made way more than I did as the founder of the business. That's just sometimes part of it. So but it's also because I knew my end goal wasn't to make higher income. I could go a lot of places and make a lot of money as an income. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to create enterprise value, build a company that scaled so that I was able to sell it one day and make money in a different way. So I think it's all about like what is it that you want and then optimize for that. Don't optimize for something someone else tells you you should want. I think is what you're getting at, and I fully agree with that.
Yeah. I think, yeah, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you sacrifice to your point about, employees making more money than you, or you're in a position where you're not making money in the business. Um, the another analogy people like to make is the difference between like a dog and a wolf. Sometimes the wolf doesn't eat, but he doesn't have a collar around his neck, holding him down.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, if you're a wolf, you have that freedom to do whatever you want to do, the ability, the power almost in a sense to be free. But that means that some days you might have to go hungry because
Sure.
you don't get fed. But it's
Yeah.
it's the
Great analogy.
it's the it's the difference there of like being relying on no one but yourself to your success, versus as opposed to there comes a sacrifice, or not necessarily a sacrifice, but a consequence of the fact that your meal is coming from, you could say a hand that feeds you, as opposed, um kind of into going back into having a business and growing the business specifically here in central New York. What's something that, now, do you still today, even Arcovo, is this a kind of a global brand, or is this for businesses in a certain region, United States, etc., or even with Digital Hive? What's something unique about central New York and growing a business here, as opposed to anywhere else in the world?
I think one of the biggest advantages that I found in building a business in Central New York is that we are a little like maybe a couple years behind trends. And I think a lot of people would look at that as a bad thing, but I love it because every business I've built, I've looked at other places and I've seen success. Like Digital Hive, when we started Digital Hive, it was 2014. There was digital marketing agencies all over New York and Boston and San Fran, and like they existed in large cities. There wasn't a single digital marketing agency that only did what we did, right? Paid search, paid social, SEO, website building. Like there weren't agencies, just there were agencies that offered those services, but it's not all they did. Or there might have been some that did it, but they weren't trying to do what we do, like trying to scale the way we were. They were one or two people companies and things like that. So we had an opportunity to fill a space that other markets had proved that there is a demand for, but it just hadn't gotten here yet.
Hmm.
And so that was the opportunity that I found building in Central New York was like we could be the first. Whereas if we were in a bigger market, we wouldn't have been the first. Um, Same thing with Profound. Profound was a mastermind group, and there's mastermind groups, in every major city. There's one on every corner. There really wasn't. People didn't even know the term mastermind group in Central New York before me and my business partners brought it to the area. I'd been lucky enough to be a part of a mastermind group based out of Austin when I was with Digital Hive, and that's really what opened my eyes. Where I got so much value. I met so many incredible people. It was all about like deep relationship building, which again is like my superpower. I love that. And so that's why I started that organization, and it was amazing. People to this day say that some of their best friends, some of the best experience they've ever had was in Profound. And so I think there's a tremendous advantage of being growing a business here, where you can look at the landscape around the country of like what is trending, and then bring it to this area. I will say that like with Arcovo, AI is so nascent. We're actually doing something novel for the entire country. So that's been really cool because the way we build, the way we're scaling, you're not actually finding that. There are, and I've spoken at, do a lot of AI keynotes, and I spoke at a private equity conference in New York City and in Menlo Park, and they have a kind of pulse on everything happening in the AI space. And there are very few businesses that take the approach that we do. And so it's pretty cool to be the forefront of this, I would say around the world. And that is then leading us to actually most of our clients are not in this area. We have a number of clients in this area that we're very proud to work with. But we have a lot of clients just mostly in the US. We have some international clients, but the majority are in the US. Um, so I think that's an incredible advantage. The other advantage of building in Central New York is that it's a small market. So when I came from Rochester, Rochester's a similar market but slightly larger, and I was earlier in my career. It was kind of hard to break into the business community world. Whereas when I came to Syracuse, people embraced me immediately. I went to 4 meetings, and I feel like I met the majority of the people I know today that, are influential in the area, and, whether it's business owners, political leaders, I was able to meet people very quickly and build relationships with them in a way that if you went to New York, Boston, or any of the big cities, it would be very hard to break in. So that's another advantage that I think you could just meet people easier.
As I mean, I would say restaurant owner, right? You were part of Clover's XO Hidden Fish. What's your kind of pulse check, if you will, about the future of Syracuse and with Micron coming in with kind of this excitement, kind of this feeling of we're on the precipice. 81 is getting blown up. All of these things. It seems like more businesses and more people are coming into the area. What is what's kind of your thoughts on the future of Syracuse?
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly bullish on the area. Literally yesterday, this guy we're working with at Arcovo asked me, hey, you live in Syracuse, right? I think he lives in Florida. He's like, you live in Syracuse, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, why? I mean, genuinely, he said that. And I was like, oh, because, and I told him, like, we love where we live. It's Finger Lakes, beautiful. The summer's great. We have forest, all the things that people say about Central New York, right?
Yep.
And he's like, dude, I used to do roofs up in Central New York in Syracuse. He's like, that was brutal in the winter. I'm like, yeah, the winters can be tough. But I snowboard. You figure out ways to like enjoy the winters, and also we do a lot of traveling, so we get out of the area as well, which I think is important. Like, I love Central New York, but I also think it's very important. My wife is from Finland, so we're in Europe, every year, and I think it's really important to see the world, and learn about other parts of the world to create a deeper sense of understanding the opportunities like I just mentioned, but also b just like how other people live. But I would say this area is poised for just incredible growth. I mean, if you look objectively at the area, the fact that we have secured one of the most valuable companies in the entire world is building the largest private investment that's ever happened in the United States. The largest private investment in the United States history is happening in Clay, New York, is the most ridiculous statement in the world, right? Like, I think people don't actually realize the impact that that will have, because it's not just Micron. It's all the suppliers that will come with Micron. It's all the commerce. It's all the revenue that that will generate. It's all the new businesses that will have the opportunity to serve all the new populations that come from restaurants to service businesses to like again suppliers of Micron to ancillary services. Like, there's just so many things that will come from, and it's not just Micron. We're getting a full technology corridor from Buffalo all the way to Albany that we're a part of, that we've got a bunch of funding for. Drone technology and Genius New York that Center State CEO puts on. We're attracting some of the best drone operators in the world, which is obviously an incredibly growing industry. I think because of the affordability of this area, because of the fresh water, because of our resources, because of the beauty of the area, again, objectively, not just because I live here, I would say we are just poised for this incredible exponential growth. And I think we need to meet the moment. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to crush it. That, to be honest,
Hmm.
I think that we need to work collectively to figure out how do we just like I was talking about with Digital Hive. Sometimes rapid growth can be the worst pain. And I think we're going to experience that, right? It's not going to be, oh yeah, we attracted this huge company, everything's going to be awesome from now. No, there's a lot of stuff to figure out. But I think if we can meet the moment, and I do believe we can, because we have some really incredible leaders that are, kind of spearheading, all the growth. Um, I think we have the opportunity to become, a formidable region. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. We always like to close with this question. The podcast is called Standing on Business,
Mm.
and the phrase kind of means what's the if we were to boil down your experience, your life experience, your values, what you stand for, what is the business that you're standing on? What are the things that we could say this is the business I stand on?
That's such a great question. What do I stand on? Um, my instinct just tells me that like the thing that I meaningfully believe is that if you create more value in the world than you expect back, you will have an incredible life. I think that applies to your family, your friends, your community, your business. I think too many people are transactional. I think people expect Hey, remember when I came on your podcast? Hey, can you film my wedding? Like, hey, will you give me a discount on your services? Like, I think people just look at like, I did something for you, so you're going to do something for me. And when you don't do something for me, I'm going to be bitter about that.
Mm-hmm.
All of our lives, all of the things that happen in our lives are our expectations. We expect a certain outcome. We can't help it. We kind of look to the future to say, if I do this, this thing will happen. And I think if you reframe your expectations around what you want, what you expect out of your life, out of other people, and you just set this expectation of like, no, I'm going to be a valuable resource in the world. I'm going to do things for other people. I am going to help other people achieve their goal and their dreams, I just inherently know in the macro, I will win too. My dreams will come to life too, right? But I do never expect, if I did something for you, I expect the same equal value to come back to me. And I think that if people were to really, truly, deeply take that in, embrace that kind of philosophy, their lives would be so much better because they would let go of all this "you owe me" crap. And so that's what I think is really, really important.
Wow. So good.
Thanks,
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege. We really enjoy it. I love connecting with people that are, especially like it's very, very local. The fact that we found out that we were basically living on the same street at a certain
man.
point.
Yeah, it's wild. It's
That's
crazy.
so. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. It's been an awesome awesome session, guys. If you are a local business owner, if you're an organization leader, someone anybody here in the Central New York area, everyone has a story to tell. We'd love to hear about it. We'd love to know more about you. Please feel free to reach out on us. And as always, guys, thank you so much for listening, watching. Feel free to share and subscribe, like all of those things. And we'll see you guys here on the next one.